This one's Uncle Rich. It's amazing how much you can learn about people after they die. I knew that my Uncle Rich and Aunt Jean had a tumultuous relationship, but it wasn't until after my uncle died in December that a lot of things came to light for me. It doesn't help that I live in a different state, away from all of the drama and back and forth. Or maybe that's a good thing. My mother would argue that it is, and the reason she moved across half the country 35 years ago. I knew that they were alcoholics and had even split up a few times, but I didn't know that it was because my aunt could become violent during their fights, and that my uncle even had to call the cops on her a few times to intervene. This was the reason my grandmother doesn't like my aunt, because she hurt her boy, a sentiment that makes sense coming from a mother, but one that I can't reconcile. I never talked to him about this, but the pragmatic in me needs to believe that there was a reason why Uncle Rich always went back. My mother says it's because he loved her so much, or because they had been together so long. Maybe it's because he didn't know better or was too tired to start over. I'm sure it definitely had to do with their two kids. Meanwhile, my grandmother whispers witch at my aunt, but plays nice to her face so that she can still see her grandkids. I've never seen this side of my grandma, and it's kind of scary. I've been thinking a lot lately about death and how I react to it. Like, how close does someone have to be for me to become really affected? Like, crying uncontrollably affected. When my mom called to tell me that Uncle Rich had died, she was crying, but I did not cry. We talked about how we would leave ASAP for Florida, and then I went back to sleep for a few hours. It felt like he had been dead for months. He had just finished a battle with throat and lung cancer. All of his chemo and radiation was done. He was having trouble breathing, so they put a stent in his throat, and some complications arose from that. He went into the hospital Monday night, and in less than 12 hours, he was gone. The whole time he underwent treatment, he was still smoking, and I couldn't help but think that I probably would too if I were him. That I would feel like a dead man walking. I think that's when Uncle Rich died for me, when I connected those dots in my head. It is hard to be around these people in mourning. I have always been close with my cousins. We are all around the same age and grew up together, as much as we could, living in different states. They are the closest thing I have to brothers. With each death in the family, I realize more and more how important these connections are, but I am still finding it difficult to make myself spend time with them now, in their darkest time. I've always loved my Aunt Jean, Richard's wife, but I dread going over to her house and sitting with her. I stealthily eavesdropped on her sobbing to my mother while we all played Yahtzee in an attempt to act normal the Saturday after the funeral. She couldn't control herself or her grief and kept going on about how my uncle married a pagan and all of his family hated her for it. Aha, a confession. Also, my mom and I would never hate her for that. I think it's cool and totally want to pick her brain about it sometime in the future when, she hasn't just lost her life partner. My grandmother only wants to reminisce, and it is so hard to listen. What must it feel like to outlive one of your children? I hope I never find out. I sat with her while she put together a photo album to take to the funeral. There were pages and pages of clippings from his high school football days, but it was hard to find photos of adulthood. I wonder when our lives stop becoming important enough to document. Has it already happened to me? One of my other aunts only wants to complain about how she had to do all the work at the funeral, and I want to scream at her, Why does this even matter? She is the same aunt that remarked several times that although we were all there for a sad reason, it was still nice to be together. It felt like a crass betrayal that none of us were supposed to admit to. I felt dirty and empty, and I wanted to go home. I wish we had made it out here sooner to see him one more time. I wish I had called him, but I was afraid. My mom was afraid too. When he first got sick, I asked if we should go, and she said no, that we should wait and save some money. We were planning to come in March, a goodbye trip, if you will. I'm so sorry that my mom never got to say goodbye to her brother. We made the trip we were planning to make just 3 months earlier, and it's all on credit cards instead of savings, and I wish so much that we did it months ago. It would have been worth 10 times the debt. Thank you.